Hello and welcome back to today's video. I'm so happy that you're joining me. I just want to talk about some of the things that I've been working on and kind of in reference to that video where I talked about this new season of change that I was in and how I'm looking towards a more intentional way of approaching my knitting and crochet and really slowing down and being in that moment with the yarn and the memories and the moments that I want to attach to them. And it really is a branch off that video. Nothing crazy happened, but I did have a moment where I saw this random post on Facebook, and I really feel like it was a moment that God had placed before me to see if I was going to be obedient and to see if I was going to be bold and rise to the occasion. And because of that, it really influenced and inspired my crafting this week and what I was knitting and crocheting. And I just want to share that with you and that progress, as well as the other progress I have on my other projects and what I'm going to be casting on. And we're going to start off with what I'm currently knitting and crocheting right this moment. So as far as what I'm working on right this moment, I'm still knitting away on my blurry cow, which is a Hoey Locatelli pattern. And I really am enjoying knitting on this thing. It is very, very peaceful and it's very easy to follow. I'm using some Hue Loco yarn in her pumpkin spice collection, pumpkin spice and everything nice collection, and it's still staying in that same bag that my friend Deborah gave me. I saw that Deborah told me the name of the bag maker, but they're no longer making bags anymore, unfortunately. So I didn't really feel like I needed to link that information in the show notes in that video. But this is a DK weight yarn. It's 100% superwash. It's 230 yards per 100 grams, and I'm using the color Maple Leaf, which is this really pretty orange. And then I have this variegated that I'm using with it that has a lot of natural browns and greens, and it's called Winding Road. And I went into detail in that past knitting and crochet podcast. I think that was 32, so this would be 33, of why I chose those colors and what it represents for me and what the feeling and the memory attached to that is. But as far as where I am, I'm kind of like right in the middle of a row again because that's just how I live my knitting and crochet life apparently. But when I last showed this to you, we were at where the snail is. So I completed all this winding road, which is going to be this top section here, and that's right there. And I've done all of these stripes so far. Now these stitch markers here, I'm just using to keep up with my repeats because mostly this is my bed knitting and I'm knitting it with a very, very low light. And so I can't really see very well, but I can feel for those stitch markers. And so that way I can kind of know what repeat I'm on and where I'm at the pattern. But I love how it's working out and I love the contrast that maple leaf orange has with a winding road. And you can see the winding road does have that maple leaf color in it. And it's just a really, really pretty cowl. It's going to be a really big cowl, which I'm grateful for. It should be enough to kind of give a little bit on my shoulders, and so it's going to be very cozy. And it has a very nice construction, and so it just kind of joins in the back. I have, I think, one more little bit of repeat of stripes, and then I get to do the big section of the maple leaf at the bottom, and then I'll be casting this off. This has a deadline of the end of the month, and I've got to get this photographed. I also have to get the long skein shawl photographed for the Hoey Locatelli knit along and get those turned in because I haven't turned any of that other stuff in yet, and I still have to turn in that hat as well. Now, the next project that I'm currently knitting on is my weekend shorty socks. This is a free pattern, and you've seen this for a while now. These are only my on-the-go knitting. So I've been knitting on these when I ride in the car or in between church service this week, so we have a lot going on at church. So I haven't put in a progress keeper. I need to do that. But when I showed these last, I just finished the last gusset stitch. So I was probably right about the end of, let me see if I can see my camera. I was right about at the end of this blue stripe here. So I've done this pink, this blue, and this other pink on both of these. And I'm knitting these congruently so I can get done with them 2 at a time. And you can see where this is my cuff, this is my heel flap, and I am working on my foot. There you go. That's a really, really good shot of it. I love this yarn. It's really soft. It's called Mixed Berries from the Alpaca Fiber Company. I really enjoy the process of knitting socks to an extent, but they just feel like they take forever for me, and so I just get kind of annoyed with them. But I'm making myself work on these when I can in the car, and I feel like I'm getting some progress done. And I'm gonna stick in a progress keeper when I go back inside, and that way I can show you what progress I've done on the next video. And that is all I'm actually actively working on at this moment. I haven't cast on any other new things, but I do have some finished objects to show you, and I would like to show you those now. So I'm actually kind of shocked I got as much as I did this week done compared to where I have been knitting and crocheting lately. I got a lot done on that cowl, and I think it's just because I just really have been craving projects like that. And so it's been very, very nice. And then I did get done with some of the ornaments that I'm wanting to send that teacher. So if you missed that previous video, I'm just going to give a little bit of detail about what of that situation inspired me. So I mentioned that I saw that post on Facebook, and I read it, and the gist of it was this teacher had recently lost her mom, and she had acquired her mother's Christmas decorations and handmade decorations at that. And they were cleaning out some stuff, and her husband took the donations and accidentally took this tub of ornaments of her mother's. And she went into the thrift store to try to get them to go look in the back for it. But the thrift store that she's referring to is one that is held by a local organization that is a rehab, and they have a big turnover. And I don't know how long of a span it was from her donation time and to the moment where she realized they were gone, but the employees themselves wouldn't let her go back there and look for them. And I don't know if there was a management on staff that could accommodate her. And so she made this post asking if anybody had seen any of her ornaments, that if they buy them or buy any of this stuff, and she kind of went over a little thing, to please let her know, and she'd be more than happy to buy that back from them because she just wanted the keepsakes of her mom. And the post it just kind of touched me as someone who's also very sentimental and who is just still grieving over the loss of my mom and thinking about the women in my family and how I do have some of their Christmas stuff, their ornaments and their decorations, and how meaningful those things are to me, even though they're just things and they can come and go at any moment, like the ornaments in this woman's situation. Because I'm a sentimental person too. I cherish the things that are made for me, whether it's something that's handmade for me or whether it's something that is handmade that a family member made that was passed down to me. Those things I do cherish. And for example, like I have a lot of bags from Darlene, who is Bags by Awesome Granny. And every time I get a bag from her or she just randomly sends me a bag, she'll always include this little handwritten note. And every one of my bags I have from her, I keep those notes and they're in there. And when I use those bags, I read them and it just reminds me of our friendship, and it reminds me of how meaningful this craft has become in my life because of people that I've met through it. But there are memories attached to them, and there's emotions attached to them, and I get that. And so I had made a comment on her post. Again, never met this lady in my entire life. I don't know who she is, nothing about her. I just randomly saw her post and I felt a tug, and that's why I refer to it as like a God moment. It was something where I could have just went about my day and I could have just spent the week knitting on things that I really wanted to knit on or that, were on my own cue. But I just had this tug on my heart, and this is nothing to do for me. I really think this was like a test to see if I was gonna kinda be obedient to him, and it's all about him and his glory and his grace and love, because I couldn't do any of this stuff without that. And I saw that she had put on there that most of the items were personalized. I knew that unfortunately, the thrift stores, when they get personalized stuff, most of the time, they just toss it in the trash because they can't sell it, and it broke me a little bit, I felt sorry, and I felt the sadness that she had to be feeling, and I coulda just left it at that, closed Facebook, and went about my day knitting and crocheting on the things that I wanted to make, but I was moved, and I really felt like it was a God moment, and it was a chance for me to show the love and the grace and the kindness that God has shown me through his people here on earth to someone that I've never met. And even though it's not me to just reach out and have conversations with random strangers. I left a comment on her very, very public post. And it said, if you want to message me your address, I would love to knit or crochet you an ornament, not from your mom, but from a mom to have on your tree. And I thought about it once I hit send, like maybe I should delete that. I don't really have time to knit another ornament. What if I can't get it done in time? What if I really need to get done with this cowl so I can turn it in for this knit along, but I left it. And then a few minutes later, I got a message, and it was her messaging me in a very grateful and thankful tone and providing me her address. And I just kind of felt this nudge to do more. And that's something that I'm also working on personally is not only trying to physically show God's love and grace to others, but also to show it spiritually and to get out of my comfort zone in that aspect. So I asked her, when I deliver or mail this ornament off to you, can I include something about our upcoming women's event at church in December? And I hit send, and I sat there like a nervous wreck. I hadn't looked at her Facebook page. I didn't know if she was religious. I didn't even know what religion, if she was religious. I didn't know if she had a relationship with God or with Christ or any of that. I know nothing about this person. And so I'm just sitting there like, what did I just do? But she, again, I saw the little, the dots, and I'm like, okay, she's responding. This is not going to be that. This is going to be good. God's got this. I'm okay. And so she responded and said, yes, I would be very interested in that. And I kind of felt this little tug to go deeper. This is not like me, y'all. I can feel my face just getting red as I'm doing this. And so I was like, da, 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 da. Do you happen to have a home church? Or because I was trying to figure out what if she is religious, what religion she is. And come to find out, her husband's family used to go to our church. And then when I was reading that, I was just kind of like, what a God moment. What a moment that I felt like I was being used. And because of my obedience, I'm able to offer this person I never met this fun event of Women of Faith coming up in December. And we started talking more, and she knows the same people I know, and she's good friends with several of them that are in my small group, my Sunday school or Sunday morning class, whatever you want to call it. And one of them's actually our teacher. And I'm like, Okay, this is definitely a meant to be conversation. So it allowed me to offer her, you know, it allowed me to have a moment to invite her to our Sunday small groups class and our church because she knows these people, she knows our teacher. And it was just this really full circle moment of God putting this in front of me being obedient, and me seeing the blessing happening because of my obedience. Nothing to do with me. I was just the hands and the mouth of the situation. But him using it to maybe call back a family into the church. And I'm grateful that I was a part of that. But I am knitting her some ornaments, and that is a couple of the finished objects. I've already knit 2 of them. I was just gonna knit 1 of them, and then I just kept going. So this is the Merry Village House by Drops. It's a free pattern. I used some DK weight capri cotton for this, and I used a beige, and then I used 2 different colors. They were actually sport weight blue cotton. They're just random. I don't even know where they came from. And I held those double so it kind of gave a marled effect on the roof. And then I crocheted slip stitch the door. And then I just did some embroidery for the window. But I wanted the door to be a little bit thicker. And I think it turned out really cute. It's just front and back. I did alter the pattern a little bit. So they have you cast on so many stitches, I forgot how many, and then knit in the round. And I did a Jenny's Magic cast on, much like you would do a sock, and just kind of knit a tube, a flat tube. And that way I didn't have to close at the bottom. But that's the first one I knit for her. And then the second one I knit for her was a pattern that I haven't knit in several years, but it's called Pint-Sized Trees. And I've knit 2 of these for myself that are on my Christmas tree, and I'll be decorating out here soon, and I'll show you those later. But this is a pint-sized tree, and I used this random acrylic sport weight yarn. Actually, it's more of a DK weight yarn that I got out of a little kit. And then I got a little branch out of my yard, and I broke it in half and made the bottom of the tree. But I just think it's so stinking cute. So she has a little house and a tree. And I think I have a star button. I'm going to look and see if I do. I'm going to sew that on there as well. And her story has really been spread. Like the newspaper even picked it up and did a front page article on her, which I thought was amazing because more people are now looking for her stuff. And it also kind of pressured the thrift store. I think they finally reached out to her. I don't know how far or how intensive they're helping her. I'm praying that they do what's right and they do have someone go back there and look for her mother's tote. I mean, she described the tote perfectly. It even had like a tag on it. So I don't understand why it couldn't, unless they've already tried to process it and then they just know that that's already been, a lot of the stuff's been thrown away. But I'm hoping that these, when she looks at them, she thinks of her mother, and then she thinks that, and knows that her mother sent another mom to help kind of ease her Christmas, and that her mother was a part of that. But her story, when it made the front page and when she was being interviewed, she told them that there was a knitter and crocheter who reached out to her and that has offered to knit her an ornament, and how that moved her. And that was me. And it really helped solidify and my own obedience and my own boldness in that situation. And it helped encourage me to do it more and more, I think. It's just kind of been a gentle reminder of God's grace and love that was shown to me through my act of His grace and love, if that makes sense. I know that's kind of, but yeah, that's where I am. So that is that's the two that I made, and I think I'm gonna make her one more, and I'm gonna talk about that and what I'm gonna be knitting and crocheting next. But this is that hat, that Raffi hat that I finished for the Hoey Locatelli knit along, and I love how it turned out. Look how pretty that is. I really love this yarn. This yarn did not have a colorway name. It was like an oopsie from Malintosh, and it's their vintage base, so it's a worsted weight base. However, when I look at this, I do think of maple leaves, and I talked about that in that last knitting and crochet podcast because it does. I mean, it has the browns, it has the reds, but I really like wearing this hat. It's really, really comfortable. And the pattern, it was so much one by one rib. But I'm glad I stuck with it and finished it because it's a great fitting hat for me. Let's talk about what I'm going to be knitting and crocheting next. So the next thing I'm going to be starting on this weekend is going to be her other ornament. I'm going to knit her a star. She did mention something about her mother having a tree topper and it was like a star or something. And that's something that she really wanted back, but she hasn't been able to locate yet at the thrift store, or that they haven't located yet. So I really wanted to knit her a star for her tree, and I'm going to be knitting this one, which is the Sunburst Star Ornament. It does use DK weight yarn. I haven't picked out my yarn for it. I'm probably going to knit some more capri yarn because I have this yellow, but it's not the yellow that I really wanted to use. I was hoping to find a yellow that would be more in line with this color palette of these softer colors, but it is what it is. I may still just knit it out of this yellow. This is the same yarn that this is out of, and it is 60% cotton and 40% polyacryl. It's 50 grams, and there is 176 yards in these. This is some deep stash that I got from our old yarn store that we used to have close by, and they were only $3.99 a piece when I purchased them. I'm sorry, my fingernails look horrible. I need to redo those. That's what I also plan on doing this weekend. But yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do her star out of. And then, as far as casting on things, I'm going to be casting on that Sophie scarf with the Concept by Katia Cotton Merino, and that is this yarn. I just posted a video, and I felt so bad about it. Like, I literally felt like, I don't know, I felt like people were gonna be like, "What?" Because I posted the video, podcast 32 of the Knitting and Crochet Podcast, talking about this whole season of change and being intentional and using what I have, and then here there wasn't really gonna be yarn hauls anymore, and here I am, the next video, talking about this box of yarn that I was showing you. But it wasn't really a yarn haul. I didn't buy that stuff. I had not even talked to them yet, and I'm still not really buying yarn. But I also want to be supportive to a yarn company and help bring yarns to you that you may not have known about and that you can get locally and not have to pay tariffs. So I was kind of just caught in like this weird place, and I just kind of felt weird about it, but it's fine. I'm moving on from that. But I am going to be casting on the Sophie's scarf, and I picked out a progress keeper to use, and it's this little cute snowman right here. I don't remember where I got this from. I will find out and put down below, and I will link that shop in the description. But I cannot wait to cast this on because it's so soft. And then I did go ahead and stick one of my axolotls in there. I meant to stick the pink one, but I guess I didn't. This is living in a Knit for Brains. Yes, a Knit for Brains bag. They have a YouTube channel. I will link them down below. But this is one of their sock bags that I had purchased, and it's the perfect size for my little Sophie scarf. So that is living in that bag. And then the next thing I'm going to cast on is living in this bag. And this is something that I won during that yarn crawl, and I've been waiting to try it out. It's got these two handles here, and it has a huge handle here. But in here, I do have the needles for this and the Sophie scarf, and I have all my yarn. I'm going to be casting on that hot water bottle cozy out of these basic merinos that I talked about in that video. And I went ahead and picked out my progress keeper because this is going to be a warm and cozy bottle cozy. I picked out a hot tea and macaroons stitch marker from Simply Serving to use with that. So I will be casting that on. And all these patterns are going to be linked down below, as well as timestamps for you. I will be working on my blurry cow, of course. And then if I have time this week, I would like to cast on one of the little mini Christmas village houses like this for myself. I do want to touch back on real fast about this whole obedience thing with me and why I wanted to knit these ornaments for her. So when she made this post, there was a lot of people who were quick in the comments, and they were like, figures it was a church-owned thrift store that would not help you out. That's so very Christian of Christians, and seeing that like hurts me as a Christian, because being a Christian and being a child of God and a lover of Christ are two different things. A Christian is just a title, and a true relationship with Christ is a relationship that spills into other parts of your life. And it's a relationship, and it's a following, and an active following, an active life. And I think we sometimes can forget that, and I'm not referring to her when I say this, but I think we forget that people can meet Jesus through not just sermons or through the Bible and scripture, but they can see him and meet him through our small gestures that we do in his name. And it's not to glorify us in any way, but it's just being that vessel that he speaks through people. And I think we have got to be more intentional and more bold in doing that, because people are constantly watching, and there's this whole concept of this butterfly effect. And I think this was part of that. So, also last week, I had an opportunity to go to the Alabama Fiber Festival. I was not going to go. I was pretty dead set on not going. I don't want to say that I've been depressed after Mammal, but I definitely have closed in on myself. I get that way when I'm processing things, and it's unintentional. And that's kind of what sparked this whole season of change. I can feel myself coming out of that and wanting to be more open and more lively, I guess you can say. And even though I was not gonna go to this, my husband just kinda kept pressuring me to go, and so I went last minute, and I got a lot of footage, so I'm gonna make a whole separate video for that and share with you next week, but I just kinda wanted to give you an idea that that was coming, because there was some amazing boosts there, and I'm so happy that I did not stick with the emotions that I was feeling and stayed closed off. I'm so happy that I listen to my husband, and I think in that moment, it was where God had sent someone to me or used him to get me out and to get me in a moment of being blessed because I was able to run into people that I knew and that I hadn't seen for a while, and it was just a big blessing, and it was just good getting out of the house, and my youngest went with me, and even though he was typically pretty grouchy, because he's a 14-year-old boy, they're all grouchy, he I think he kinda enjoyed just getting out of the house with me and laughing. We had some laughs, and I'll have to tell you about that insane chaoticness when I talk about that video, but I'll be getting that out to you this week as well, this coming week at some point. But that's really what I've been working on this week, and that's where my heart has been. I hope through this story of this lady that maybe you get some boldness as well if you are someone of faith to maybe look for those moments where God is trying to use you and be obedient to them and step out of your comfort zone and let God bless you through that and let him encourage you through that. And if you're not someone of faith or religious, then just take the moment to be a kindness to someone and look for those same opportunities to really show kindness to other people. You know, as a Christian, it's not our works that save us, it's our faith. And so that is why I do those things out of a faith. But I think we all need to be more obedient and more observant of those opportunities, and that we need to act more upon them. And again, it's nothing to get praise for myself for. This was all him, and just I just felt like I was a vessel that was used, and I'm good with that. I'm happy to be that, and I'm blessed to be that. But thank you so much for hanging out with me this morning and talking about some projects. I hope you have a great weekend, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.